Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm excited to have Capriel Sides. She's an educator, instructional leader, content creator, and she's passionate about equity, effective teaching, and work-life balance. Woohoo! That's my
Woo!
jam, work-life balance.
Yes.
With years of experience as a mentor teacher and science of reading leader, she has supported educators in implementing research-based literacy instruction. She's also the creator of the Sides of Teaching, where she shares insights on work-life balance, instructional strategies, and the realities of teaching with humor and authenticity. And her mission is to empower educators to create meaningful learning experiences while maintaining joy in and out of the classroom. Welcome, Capriel.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I love that. And the way can you tell me about the way you taught me how to pronounce your first name?
So it's Capriel, and I like to say that it's like a cup of real. And
Yeah,
the only thing that rhymes with it is when people say like, "Are you for real?" which doesn't happen very often. But yep,
I
that
love
makes it
that
easy.
because with your humor and authenticity focus, that's in keeping. It's on brand, as we would
Yeah,
say.
keeping it
Right,
on theme. Yeah.
right.
I love that.
Lovely. Well, let's just start with how did you get into education um, and into this work that you're so
Yeah.
passionate about?
I think I was the classic playing teacher, playing school as a kid. I might even call myself a little bossy as a kid. um, I found so much joy in supporting my teachers, and um, I felt really safe at school. Like I was never a kid that wanted to be sick and stay home. I was like, "I'm sick and I still can go to school." Like, it was my place that I felt seen and I could be my authentic self. And so it was like a no-brainer for me to become a teacher. I had a lot of people that love me say like, "Are you sure you wanna do that? Like, that's really hard work for not very much pay," you know? The reasonable voice for what makes people sort of apprehensive into going into it, and I was like, "Nope, I'm doing it." Like, I didn't even second guess it. So, it was the track that I stepped into, like, even my freshman year of high school. Like, I was taking extra electives to volunteer at my elementary school I went to, and it was just the steps I knew I was going to take. Now 6 years into it, um, I think I'm opening my horizons into, like, not only being a teacher, but being, like, an educator in a larger way. And so I think taking my love for not just teaching, but, like, education and kids and all of that, it'll be interesting to see where it takes me, whether it's inside or outside of the classroom.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Love that. So, yeah, I resonate with your feeling seen and heard at school and that being a very safe place. I felt the same way. And I
Yeah.
think, and I feel bad for those who that's not the case, you know?
Right, and there are some teachers that are like, "I hated school, and that's why I'm a teacher,"
Uh-huh.
which is a funny story to hear too. And I do also think about so many of my students that I interact with, and I actively know that, like, this system was not built with you in mind, and how upsetting that is, and the amount of extra work that an educator has to do to create that space for them. And I'm hoping
Mhm.
I'm doing that. You can only do your best and hope that you're making those students feel seen and
Mhm.
um like they have the joy that like makes them want to be there like I felt when I was a kid.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the extra work that goes into it, just so that others can wrap their heads around the extent to which gen ed teachers need to differentiate.
Oh, yeah. Um, I mean, it's in so many ways that the average person doesn't even think about. Like you tell somebody you're a teacher, and oftentimes the response is like, "So cute."
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I mean, I would never describe it as necessarily cute. Like, yes, I interact with 7 and 8-year-olds, but, like, so many adults are like, "Well, I've got so much stuff going on." I'm like, these kids have so much, and so little frontal lobe to deal with it. Um, and so, like, in my gen ed room, like, I personally have 9 students with IEPs. Some of them, like, and more students that need more support than they're getting.
Mm,
And also knowing, like, the diverse needs of, like, our students step into our classrooms and they have different family stories, different cultures, different just experiences in the world, and knowing I am like the classic middle class white woman teaching my students that need more than that is like something that's at the forefront of my mind often. And making sure like I'm providing opportunities for like any student in my room to feel reflected, to feel like their story is being heard and seen in the
mhm,
classroom, um, whether that's through books or field trips or volunteers, or, I'm just trying to make sure that my students aren't seeing the world in a single lens when they know that's not their lens. I mean, it's impossible to really do, especially when you're one person with a classroom of 25 or whatever it is.
mhm,
It's daunting and it's overwhelming, and I mean, it's impossible, like, but we do our best, yeah. I don't know. Differentiating is a
mhm,
in all ways, not just
mhm,
educationally. So many people
mhm.
think about it like, "Oh, easier work or harder work," which is really not it. That is not it.
It's the tip of the iceberg, right?
Absolutely.
I love what you
Yeah.
said about showcasing multiple lenses because we're already multifaceted beings, and then upon to layer upon that their own cultural history, their home history, and everything that they're bringing in their the proverbial like backpack, emotional backpack, emotional
Right.
cultural. I always think of that that they're carrying around their trauma, their family expectations, um, in some cases, systemic racism or prejudice,
Yeah.
their own beliefs about themselves, and anything that they've experienced that was really made them feel very helpless. Um,
And they really bring that in with them every day. And you have to
yeah,
show up for them every day, even though sometimes they show up and they can barely show up for themselves.
yeah,
And that is hard. Or sometimes some people think like, "Oh, well, they're kids. You can really get to know them in, a couple weeks." And some students come in and their shell is hard. And sometimes it takes a couple months for them to trust you. And even
mhm,
then, like they're really waiting for you to not be trustworthy. Like they're looking at you and testing
mhm,
you all the time. And you have to
mhm.
show up. And it feels so great and so hard.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with that overwhelm and that feeling of an impossible job that you've been given? How do you deal with that?
You know, I sometimes feel like I can't. Like it really
Yeah.
it, and the amount of comments that I've gotten specifically this year are like, "I don't know how you do it." And then people walk away. And
Uh-huh.
I feel very like I have mixed feelings about that sort of phrase. I'm like, "Am I doing it?"
Mhm.
It's a lot of like naming that I can't do it all, and also it's not
Mhm.
my responsibility to do it all and to be okay with that.
Mhm.
It's really letting go of the pressure, the shame, the all of all of that, because, like, it can feel really isolating and you can feel very alone when you're teaching and feeling like, well, that kid needs that and that and that and that, like, and it's
Mhm.
like you're like a conductor or you're running a, I don't want to say a circus, but like there's so many different things going on.
Right, right.
And I'm like, I go home at my contract time. Like I am not staying late to make the perfect lesson because
Mhm.
can I teach it the next day with some of the behaviors? I don't know, like, we're just gonna go with it. Um,
Yeah.
I I have, like I mean, I have a therapist, right?
Mhm.
So I do that. I, uh, I have a partner that is extremely supportive and sort of, like, calls out when I put myself into the cycle of, like, well, I should be doing fill in the blank.
Mhm.
And my teaching partner, like, keeps me alive. Like, we divide the work, we reflect with each other constantly throughout the day, like, "This worked, this doesn't work, let's do this," and we've got each other's back. If I didn't have that, uh, I don't know. I don't know if I would be in the 6th year, I don't know, which feels like not very long, but in teaching years, it's probably double that.
You made it
Um,
past the first 5 years, which is
I know. When
a
I did
great
that, I was like,
feat. A
I
great
passed the
feat.
burnout phase.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
So
I think it's
yeah.
if I had to give one like new teacher tip, it would be like when you take off your lanyard at the end of the day, like doing some sort of verbal like, and I'm not a teacher right now. Like some
Like a
sort of
ritual.
yes, and that has been huge for me. Like I'm a verbal processor and I like learn a lot through like body movement. So like
Mhm.
differentiating for myself, like taking off
Yeah.
the lanyard and ritualizing it and really trying to like
Mhm.
mentally get out of it or else you get really stuck.
Mm, love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've thought a lot about rituals and how, if you have a uniform, you're able to like put it on, don the uniform, and, I've heard like police officers, they immediately feel differently, in their bodies. They have like a different confidence and presence. And then they're able to, if they're able to take the uniform off, they feel better. Like they're
Yeah.
they're able to transition into their leisure time. And with with teaching, I mean, we the beauty of it is that we can wear, somewhat whatever we want, but also
Yeah.
that means that our wardrobe um, is both for casual and for professional purposes. And then you need another kind of ritual to, take on and off those professional roles. And that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. I like the lanyard idea and
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's the
and
only thing
stating
we've
it.
really got. Yeah.
Yeah, the lanyard. I mean, I used to run home and switch into gym clothes and then go to the gym.
Yep.
And that was a nice transition also. Um, but I like the lanyard because maybe that's not, maybe you have things after school or
Yeah.
maybe, and, fun or obligatory. And
Yeah.
having that, that lanyard and said, okay, I am done for the
Right.
day, or I am, what do you say to yourself?
I say like I'm not a teacher right now
Okay. Yeah. I'm not a
because like
teacher
I
right
mean,
now.
I will
Yeah.
be tomorrow, but
Yes, of
like for the
course.
rest of the day until I go to sleep, I am not a teacher right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And I
I
think
love
that's
that.
also like creating teacher content. I don't often do it at home.
Oh.
And I I think that's because like I do have to have like a physical difference. Like in my classroom, I have like my teacher
Mhm.
brain on and when I'm home
Mhm.
like I really don't want it on.
Mhm.
And it's kind of confusing because people are like, if you're a content creator, like create, like make it all the time. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I already got teacher stress. Like, I don't need
Right.
this content creating stress.
There is a lot of pressure for the content creation.
Yeah,
Yeah. Good for you
absolutely.
for holding those boundaries. That's an important um, lesson for, well, or practice for not allowing burnout into your life. Yeah, that's a big
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your teacher partner.
Yeah, I
So
would
do you
love to.
guys do you job share, or is it a co-teaching situation or
We're just across the hall from each other.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, so we're the only two second grade teachers at our school, and we've worked
Okay.
together. Like we got hired around the same time as new
Hmm.
teachers and have been together since.
Got it.
Like we taught through the pandemic together. We've had like
Oi.
5 or 6 different administrators. We've had a lot of stuff going on, and at one point I even like lived in her basement ADU when I was like in between rentals. We like have gone camping together. We went to a teachers conference this year. It's like we're very intertwined with each
Hmm.
other. um and I actually got hired. I was like substituting for about 2 months, and I got hired as a term sub at my current school that I'm at. And I
Hmm.
remember the first day I showed up, like our current principal was like throwing around butcher paper and was like, "You should teach this math lesson." Like she was like all over the place. And I was like, "Okay." And and then she walked out, and my teaching partner Maggie walked in, and she just looked at me and like paused, and she was like, "Can I give you a hug?" And I was like, "Yeah." At the time I didn't know like there was constantly a different sub in there. It was just like she didn't have the support either, with
Hmm.
a person in it with her.
Hmm.
And I was like, "Sure." Like I don't hug very much. And then since then it was like, oh, every admin we've had is like, I've never seen a team work like you do. I've never seen a team collaborate, trust, like be really truly in it together like we do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like the amount of administrators that are like, why don't you talk to the staff about this? And I was like, I don't know if other teachers love us as an example. It's very like probably daunting, and they like to like brush it off. But if we could support other teachers doing that, like I don't know, it's like that has kept us surviving in our teaching
Hmm.
together. But
Yeah, I think having a work bestie is huge.
absolutely.
Whether they're on, I mean, preferably on your campus, but just to in between, you know, classes or at recess, just being like, oh man, I had a day already, you know?
Right. Oh my gosh. And both of us are like, "Oh," like thinking about going into like instructional coaching, or
Mhm.
like kind of stepping into like a different leadership role.
Mhm.
Um and we're kind of like, "Well, if we both do it, like we'll still be kind of in it together, right?"
Oh man.
So it's kind of a nerve-wracking situation, but we're both like ready to challenge ourselves in a different way. So
Hmm,
it'll be interesting to see what happens.
fun. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you have a work bestie.
Gosh,
You
she keeps me
really,
alive.
yeah, really cultivate that. I remember when I stopped doing lunches. So I was a school psychologist for 15 years, and um, we used to on Fridays we used to all go to lunch together, and it was a small group. There were four of us, psychs in the whole district. It was a small district,
Oh,
and
wow.
we would, just go on Fridays, go to lunch and commiserate and all that stuff. And at a certain point, we got really busy, and I chose not to. A lot of times, I chose not to go to the lunches because I was like, you know what, I have a new family. Um, I really need to get stuff done me like during the workplace or work
Right.
day rather. And like the minute I stopped doing that is when the burnout started seeping in.
Yeah.
And you really need that like escape valve that to blow off steam.
Right. And
It's
somebody who's not your family or partner.
right, right. Because they don't, as much as empathic as they are and as compassionate as they don't get it. And you also don't want to burden them with that because they don't really
Absolutely not.
know how to respond. And you
Yeah.
need somebody to just take you by the shoulder and be like, that sucks.
Right.
Sorry. That
Or like,
sucks.
"Oh, that happened to you? Let me add my little story for the day," right? And then even though it's not, like, necessarily always positive, you at least feel seen with each other, like,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
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 So, on that note, tell me a little bit about how you replenish and heal yourself. You said, you've got boundaries, you've got a therapist, you've got a partner. What else do you do to take care of all of you, your whole health?
Yeah. Um, to be honest, baths bring me joy. I think
Yeah.
I am such a like if I'm on, like I'm all the way on, and especially when
Mhm.
you're teaching and you're like boom, 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 but like it
Mhm.
just feels like that. When you're in a bath, you literally can't do anything else. So I think that, and then obviously exercising is huge. Like I grew up constantly playing sports. I was always very active. And so when that is not in my life, the like my bodily health and my mental health definitely suffer. Um
Mhm.
I think the hardest thing about that is when you're teaching, knowing when to like push yourself and exercise or
Mhm.
when you really do need rest. And I think because both are so important, it's really really hard to know which one you need. Um and another thing that like I worked through with my therapist is I would get home and I went out and I bought like my favorite chai tea. And when I would get home from work, I would say like, "I need to sit and I'm just gonna drink this before I do anything else." Like, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna do anything, I'm not gonna respond to anyone. I'm just gonna sit and drink this. And so, like, carving out time to really not expect yourself to do something,
Mhm.
balanced with, like, either going to the gym or sometimes it's just going on a walk. Finding how you're going to exercise in a way that's like responsive to what you need,
Mhm.
because I don't think I mean, people probably do know, but like the exhaustion, like spiritually and mentally you feel at the end of teaching, but like your body is tired, especially if you teach like elementary school and you're up and you're sitting and you're up and you're squatting and like you're at recess. Or like last Friday I didn't have a PE teacher, so I became the PE teacher for 45 minutes. Was I ready to like run in my jeans and my turtleneck sweatshirt? No, but did I do it? Yeah, like and I was sore the next day. So it's like uh, finding ways that like also that I am just my personal identity and not my teaching identity.
Mm.
Because I think when you're a teacher, so much of teaching is wrapped up in your identity and what you want to teach, how you're going to teach, how does that reflect who you are, like. And I think that that's what makes it so hard for so many teachers to collaborate too. Like you have to give up some of your identity to like really lean into another educator as well. But like so many teachers I know go home and they grade, or go home and they plan, or go home and they're still thinking about what they're teaching the next day. And I need to not be Miss Sides. Like I need to be Capriel for me to like really recoup. Or else I don't know. I don't know. It be really hard. And also I have to be like, I can tell like one funny or not so funny story after I teach, and then it's over. Like if I talk about my day, then I'm really not turning it off. So I have to like really hold myself back from talking about it a lot,
Mhm.
because you just stay in it. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
I like the idea of telling a funny story each day because then your mind is focused on that and
Yes.
rather than the negative. And so
Yes.
that's what you're going to remember much more.
And I mean, there's always something funny.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I mean, I think the hard thing about like, if I ever think about leaving teaching, right? I'm like, but then I have to deal with like not so funny adults. And then when you're teaching and you're just in this room and you're just like sitting back with a kid and you're
Mhm.
just chatting, and
Yeah.
like that's like honestly one of the best parts, right? Like some of the things that they say just cracks me up.
So cute. So cute. Um, yeah. What so it sounds like you have a lot of like rituals and things that
Mm.
keep you sane. Um, is there anything that you would tell your younger self to support her?
I I was raised in so much chaos. I experienced a lot of trauma, and I think going into teaching almost like perpetuates a little bit of like the fight or flight that my body has felt always.
Mhm.
Um and something I would tell my younger self is like, you don't always have to be taking care of other people before taking care of yourself. Um because I think that although I'm saying that right now as an adult into this microphone with you, do I practice that all the time? Absolutely not. Like, it feels very selfish, especially when you're a teacher and when you are like a caring person, right? Like, it feels
Mhm.
selfish to put yourself first.
Mhm.
Um, Unlearning that and not putting that pressure onto like even myself as a second grader.
Mhm.
um, I think the like free and full of joy feeling that kids should feel,
Mhm.
that would have lasted a little bit longer if I didn't start having that, that personal pressure. And I probably would feel a lot lighter as an adult too.
Mhm.
The heaviness of caretaking and making sure everybody's okay
Mhm.
is so heavy. So I would like a little less of that.
What do you think added to that messaging, that conditioning around, almost like martyrdom?
Yeah. I think it was rewarded, like, when I was a kid, um,
Mhm.
and I spent a lot of time as a child, like, protecting one of my parents that was going through it, right? And
Mhm.
so nobody was there to protect them, and as a child, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do it." Um, and I mean, like, I was raised by addicts. At one point, my mom was homeless.
Mm.
And so I would, like, every other weekend have nothing when I would visit. And then I would go back to like a sort of average middle class life. And so I
Mhm.
think that code switching of that and like protecting her and
Mhm.
protecting myself in all of the chaos really led to it. And so I think also when you practice something so much constantly, you get really good at it. So it's like
Yeah.
embedded in my bones, and
Mhm.
unlearning those things almost feels impossible, you know? But I think constantly working towards that is
Mhm.
something that I'm always working on. But I mean, things are always going to be like piled, right? Like as you get older, you're like, "Oh, I thought I had more freedom," but really sometimes it feels like you just have more responsibility. So yeah, but finding lightness and joy and like the like carefree of like being able to like, I don't know, I imagine it like being barefoot in the grass. Like, I don't know, like those sorts of feelings are
Yeah.
something that I just try to lean into more rather than,
Mhm.
leading into the heaviness that I think I've been doing my
Mhm.
whole life.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
thank
What do
you.
you think was a turning point for you that led you to looking for joy rather than living in the heaviness?
Um, I think, well, as a teenager, I didn't really rebel. I've always been a rule follower. So like finding joy, and
Mhm.
also I have a small tattoo on my back that I got when I was 18 that just says joy. And that was my rebellion, right? Like my
Uh-huh.
rebellion is I just want to be happy. Like that
Yeah.
sort of um and I think like pulling away from your identity with your family, like your core family that you
Mhm.
grow up with, and trying to
Mhm.
really enter in the identity you want to give yourself instead of like getting something projected onto you was
Mhm.
something that I instantly knew that I needed to do. And like financially, like I wanted to go off to a 4-year university when I got out of high school. And it wasn't the case. Like I went to community college for 2 years because financially that made the most sense. But
Mhm.
um, that meant like staying in my family home for 2 more years, which was hard. And then the moment I left and went to university and then got my master's degree, and I feel like that was definitely a turning point. And then um, my stepmother, who raised me in a fairly intense in an intense way, to put it lightly, just recently died last year. And
Mm. I'm sorry.
while that comes with grief, it also
Mhm.
comes with change, change for better, for worse, right?
Mhm.
When somebody's expectations aren't looming over you. And,
Mhm.
you know, being okay with like letting go of other people's expectations of you,
Mhm.
and also not taking theirs and adding it to yourself, which I catch
Mhm.
myself doing all the time.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think all of that wrapped up into teaching is it's always a journey, because sometimes teaching also feels like those pressures and those expectations and all of that, whether it's from admin or from students or from the students' parents, which is really intense, right? Like when you have
Mhm.
your own like family trauma,
Mhm.
like navigating other families' trauma
Mhm.
is intense. Like it's
Yeah.
hard. It's really hard to do. And being like neutral and supportive and like putting on your really good like teacher mask, but not
Yeah.
knowing I don't know how much parents know how impacted teachers really are by everything on top of their own things, right? But
Mhm.
yeah.
Tell us. Tell us more about that.
Well, I think it's interesting when you're interacting with a student's family where you're like, oh, I can see that this child is extremely parentified, or I can see that this child needs so much. And when they're home, they have their mask on. And so when they come to school, their mask comes off and they are grasping onto control, whether that looks like eloping or whether that looks like screaming at you. Like even though like that child loves me as a teacher, and also they have the trust to be able to say like, I can say this to you and I know you're still going to show up for me,
Mhm.
where like at home they might not have that. Um and like I am a teacher that is going to support every single type of identity that enters my space. And like I actively, teach about things like pronouns and all parts of identity. And
Mhm.
I've had like a child pulled from my class for teaching pronouns because it was so upsetting to a specific parent. And I like thankfully my district has a lot of like policy language around like how that would be supported. So I teach in a
Mhm.
very like supportive district. And so I was able to use like policy language, to support myself. And
Yeah.
also like that's what I believe. So I don't know, it's and
Mhm.
I'm not here to make any child feel like they have to hide any part of their identity.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting like navigating angry and defensive parents sometimes when all I'm doing is trying to show up for your kid and I'm trying to support you as a family. And to do that, we need to do that together.
Mhm.
And like the most successful, like, student change that I see is when like the families are so engaged and so supportive of their teacher and of the school team.
Mhm.
Because also, like, if a parent talks negatively about a teacher at home or talks negatively to me in front of their kids,
Mhm.
that trust isn't there. Like, well, if my mom doesn't like you, I don't like you, sort of thing. And I'm like,
Absolutely.
I just want everybody to love me, like that. That also makes teaching hard because
Yes.
everybody has their own things. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but don't you know I'm working so hard for your kid?
Yeah.
But, sometimes, you can only control what you can control. And so
That's
balancing
right.
those dichotomies,
Mhm.
um, like definitely triggers my fight or flight. So many things about teaching trigger my like, I don't know if I'm safe emotionally, or,
Mhm.
like I'm overstimulated, or like you're
Yep.
being mean to me, but I can't say anything about it. It's
Uh-huh.
just, um, but also like I am so real with my students. Um, like at one point, I think a couple weeks ago, I was like, is anybody feeling anxious to come to school? Like we were having a hard time. And like
Mm.
half my students raised their hand. And like one of my
Mm.
students shared like, when I come to school, I don't know if I'm going to be able to learn anything or if I'm just going to feel overwhelmed all day.
Mm.
And I'm like, same girl, same. Like
Mhm.
I'm like, that's not what it should feel like to come to school. Like I don't and I don't know what to say to you. Like we're all working on supporting each other and still like if there's like screaming, like things flying through the air, like so many overstimulating things. I'm like, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to learn either. Like I wouldn't be able to do that either. So
Yeah.
it's interesting finding the balance of like being welcoming and supportive of all needs that are in the room and like
Mhm.
sort of supporting students and understanding that too, but
Mhm.
also like teaching kids like to call out specific behaviors that are like that's mean, or like
Mhm.
don't talk to me like that, or
Yeah.
like setting boundaries or problem solving, like all of
Mhm.
those things that were ignored when I was growing up for sure. It was like, well, just
Mm.
move on, not a big deal. Or um I don't know. It's just especially the young girls. I love to see them speaking up for themselves.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that wasn't as common even when I was young, and I'm not even that old as a teacher. So I'm just like, we gotta change as much of this system as we can.
Yeah. Big
Yeah,
time.
for sure.
Well, um, thinking about your future self, we've talked about your younger self. Thinking about your future self, how do you think you can make your future self proud, personally, professionally, in any other facet of life?
Yeah. I
What
think
comes to mind?
um like a feeling of lightness feel would make me feel proud. Like shedding some of the armor and shedding some of the pressure for sure. And I think hopefully the more that I work towards that and like almost use it as a mantra, like hopefully it'll come to me with work. But um professionally, something that would make me proud is just feeling confident in my practice and not letting other people's doubts or questions like sort of sway me.
Mhm.
Oftentimes I'm seeking validation from my admin or an instructional coach or a parent or whatever
Mhm.
it might be, but like really teaching the way that I confidently know I should and believing in it. Um, that would make me feel just like more steady and strong in who I am as an educator. And
Mhm.
also like something that would make me proud of myself is like supporting educators more because I came into this work to support kids,
Mhm.
and I truly do believe that like if I'm supporting educators, whatever that might look like in the future, I am in
Mhm.
turn supporting kids. Like
Absolutely.
it's not one or the other. It can be both. And like the other day, I think I was doing a shower cry, like a shower cry moment of like, have dreamed about being a teacher and like this
Mhm.
isn't what I thought it would feel like,
Mm.
um, which feels really hard. But then the next day I had like a really great teaching day. So like I think the back and forth, you just have to like kind of lean into it and be okay with it. Um, so like but I also don't wanna promote, like, teaching until you get to the break, and then you can, like, actually take a break. Like, that's not
Mhm.
something that I think is good or sustainable either.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so hopefully I can just continue to support teachers, support kids in the same way or a different way, and support myself feeling more joy for sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, this feels like a good place to circle back and just finish up our conversation. Um, Tell us where to find out more about you.
Yeah. I am at the Sides of Teaching, on Instagram and TikTok.
Mhm.
Um, and to be honest, I post on TikTok more often. So if you want more me content, definitely
Mhm.
go there.
Mhm.
um, I I think even if I stop teaching like second grade and I go
Mhm.
into instructional coaching,
Mhm.
I will still be there. I will still be supporting teachers and supporting myself. Um, my content is a lot of humor for sure. So if you want a couple laughs, but I also have a lot of like real moments of saying it like it is and sometimes saying the things that so many teachers are thinking, but they don't know how to put it into words.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think that finding me there is going to hopefully bring you some joy, some humor,
Yeah.
and also some realness for sure.
Yeah. Some Capriel.
A cup of real
Yeah.
in my content.
Yes, I love it. Wonderful. Well, thank you for bringing light and joy to our lives through this episode. I appreciate you very much. I will have your links to your Instagram and your TikTok, and anything else in the show notes. And it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.